Hi guys, I'm Swizec and I work at night. So you'll notice that it's not night right now, and I got up at 5 a.m. to drive over here. So I have a splitting headache, and if I'm not my best right up here right now, please excuse me. So about a year ago, I got fed up with everybody calling me a lazy slob for waking up at 11 a.m. And I wrote an essay. I wrote Why Programmers Work at Night. Turns out a lot of people like that sort of essays, and I got a few thousand tweets and so on. And then a few months ago, I went to reading that essay again, and it was total crap. There were like 5 or 6 hypotheses in there, and none of them made any sense, and I just stated them without proving anything. So I decided that this topic, apparently a lot of people are interested. I wrote a crap essay, so let's write a book. And I started writing Why Programmers Work at Night a few months ago. The idea is that I'm going to talk to a few developers, do some research, and write a book about it. It's already being published. The first drafts you can find on limpub.com/nightowls, and you can start reading right now. So, how many of you work at night? Hands up. Awesome. How many of you work very early in the morning? The other half. Awesome. So, here's an interesting question. Is this a picture of the night or the morning?
Yes. Yes.
It's actually of morning, and you can't really see it very well, which is a shame. The thing is that a lot of people who work very early in the morning say they are early birds, and they dislike night people. They think we are lazy because we work late, and we think they are lazy because they wake up early. And actually, if you look at about 4 a.m., it looks the same for everybody, except we go to bed while they wake up. And everybody works at night, even though they start in the morning. Let's go back to the punch card I showed you before. This is actually a visualization of my public GitHub repositories. And you can see that for some strange reason, I really like Wednesdays. And the right side is midnight. The other side is the other midnight. And the interesting thing I discovered when I was making this is that I'm not as much a night person as I thought. I always thought for the last 10 years or so, whenever somebody asked me, when do you work? I said, man, 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. is my most productive time. But you can see that it's not actually. Also, this graph is shifted for about an hour, I think, because I suck at making proper time zone support, and we just change times. So it should be a bit more in the afternoon, but the point is, I tend to work in the evenings much less than in the night, and that's because I get sleepy eventually. So when people actually work, it really depends on a lot of factors. If somebody is a freelancer or works a daytime job, that's going to be very different. Freelancers tend to work at night, work late, especially when they're chasing deadlines. Everybody just stays up all night. But people who have jobs are usually forced into working in the day, and some of them even believe they prefer that. But you'll notice that when somebody works on a pet project, those almost exclusively happen at night. And one reason for that is that you have to do pet projects around your work, and also there's something to show off. They're awesome, and you want to do them, and you're passionate, so you do it at night. Another big thing is age. How many of you have noticed that you used to be up later when you were teenagers? Yeah. So actually, it turns out there's a bit of science behind that. Circadian rhythms are the rhythms of when we sleep. They dictate, they're somewhat coordinated with the night cycle of normal time. And it turns out that when you are born, you are a very early person and you wake up at around 6. Then it starts shifting, and when you're about 21, you reach the peak of your nightly activities, and then it starts going back down, and when you're about 60, you're an early person again. So that, I have no idea what I want to say here. So let's just skip to the next thing. So one reason why people like working at night, I think, especially programmers, is the hacker culture. Or rather, not why they like working at night, why everybody thinks that programmers work at night. When hacking started being a thing back in the 60s and 70s, I actually managed to find somebody who is old enough to have worked then. And apparently, when they were using mainframes, they couldn't use them during the day. If you wanted to code something, you had to code it at night when it was free and you weren't bothering anyone. Then, for a more recent example, in the 90s, people used dial-up. And when is nobody making calls? At night. So you work at night. But more importantly, the culture we live in has really picked this up. If you look at the Facebook movie, everything happens at night. Zuckerberg stayed up all night and made Facebook. And I think this is because of the lone genius mythos. Anybody here like Sherlock Holmes? Awesome. Sherlock Holmes fans. He tends to work at night, especially the new American version, Elementary. He works all night. And whenever you think of somebody who is exceptionally smart, who is very passionate about their craft, you will notice they are portrayed in popular culture as working all night. One reason behind that is that there's a high correlation between IQ and being a night owl. Apparently, if you are smart, you will prefer being up at night. The question here is which way the implication goes. Do you work at night because you are smarter, or are you smarter because you work at night? And even more importantly, how many of us who aren't that smart work at night because we think that smart people work at night? And why is that? Why does everybody think that if you are smart, passionate, and driven, you will work at night? Flow. That's what. Anybody know what flow is? Yay, 3 people. Awesome. So the idea of flow is, it's a really sort of focused concentration where your whole being is fixated on the task at hand, on what you're doing, and you sort of fall in, like you go in the zone, some people say, and you can't stop working. Ideas keep coming and you keep working, and it's really easy to forget that it's already morning when you're in that zone. And because you can't get distracted, because it's very meditative, you don't get bored, you don't become sleepy, and you just keep working. And I think that's a big reason of why smart people are taught to work at night, because they are passionate about what they're doing. They start working in the evening, and then they simply don't stop. But why is the night better for this sort of deep activities where you have to think a lot? One thing is simply habit. I said before that young people like to work at night. And habit is a large part of how you can get into flow. For instance, have you ever had like 2 hours of your time suddenly free up? You thought you were going to be doing something else, and you simply cannot use those 2 hours effectively. Usually when that happens to me, for instance, I skip practice for whatever reason, I stayed home and I said, I'll work for those 2 hours. I can get so much done in that free time. It's just, my day amazingly got longer, except I spent the whole 2 hours looking at Twitter and refreshing everything every 2 seconds. So habit is clearly important, and programmers are particularly known for starting when they are very young. I'm not sure if there's any other profession where you can have people at 15 releasing apps on the iStore and making tens of thousands of dollars while still in high school. And because people who are that young like to work at night, they then continue the habit when they get older. Another important thing is that you simply need to have a clear mind. You can't get into flow if something is dragging on your mind. If there's something you should be doing, if somebody expects something from you, if you have homework or kids or whatever, you can't do that until everything's been taken care of. And then you can sit down, you can relax, and you can start working. And that happens in the evening. Or for some people, early in the morning, because they can get it done before they have to do everything else. And there's also a study that I've found which says that we are more productive in the morning, but more creative in the evening. So that's also a possible reason why programmers work at night, because you need a lot of creativity for that sort of work. And apparently, if you are going to structure your day somehow, do emails and meetings and whatever in the morning, because you can just punch through tasks. And then in the evening, when you're more relaxed, you should be doing creative things, like thinking up that awesome new algorithm or whatever. And this still doesn't explain why the day is so wrong for flow, for getting into the flow, for working. And it turns out that during the day, a lot of stuff happens. Other people are awake, and you get interrupted, or you get distracted. Anyone have any idea what's the difference between an interruption and a distraction? The idea is that a distraction is something that goes on. For instance, if you have Twitter, you know there's new messages coming there, and even though you're working, even though you're in the flow, in 15, 20 minutes you go, I haven't checked what happened, what news has happened in a long time. Maybe I should go check. And you click, and then you click a link, and you click another link, and you're away from work, and suddenly an hour has passed. But an interruption happens when somebody comes up to you and asks you something. This is particularly, this happens a lot when you work at an office. For instance, you have a coworker who depends on you to finish a task so they can start working on their task. And it can be a very innocent question. They can just ask you, hey, how's it going? And it interrupts you, you fall out, and you can't get back to work for another hour. There's a lot of ways to manage this sort of interruption, but the basic problem is this. You have two people who are in flow, who depend on each other, and nobody wants to break their flow to help the other person, or they don't want to break the other person's flow because they think their problem isn't important enough. And I'm not sure exactly how to solve that, but it seems to cause a lot of problems when it comes to actually getting stuff done. So, what's a developer to do if they want to be productive, if they want to get a lot of work done, if they want to be happy, after all? Usually, at least I hope most programmers are in this game because coding makes them happy. So, Feynman, in his pleasure of finding things out, it's an interview. It goes for about an hour. You can find it on YouTube. It was filmed in 1981. Everybody knows who Feynman is, right? Okay. So he's one of 5 people who got who got 2 Nobel Prizes. And the guy, in a part of his talk, he says that to do the really hard things about physics, to solve really hard problems, you need to have a lot of time. Large blocks of time that will not be interrupted, where you can expect not to be interrupted, because a lot of the time expecting an interruption is as bad or even worse as actually getting one, because to code, you have to load up the whole program in your brain. You have to know how procedures interact, what variables are there, and so on. You have to know a lot of things, and it's like this. It's like a stack of cards, and if one of them falls, the whole thing collapses, and it takes an hour to get back. So, why do that when you know you have a meeting in an hour? Why go through all that trouble, get to work for 5 minutes, and then stop to go somewhere else? One of his suggestions was to simply say to tell everybody that you are a very irresponsible person. When he was asked to attend this or that meeting about his faculty, to become the honored member of something where he would have any responsibility, he just said, look, no, I'm irresponsible, I will forget things, I will not do that. And by doing that, he freed himself from anybody expecting anything from him. He could lock himself up in his room for 10 hours if he wanted to, get into a really deep state of thought and just think about things and get cool stuff done. And that's actually how he discovered something about the spin of electrons that got him a second Nobel Prize. The problem with this approach is that everybody else runs on hour slots. So if you look at your calendar app, you'll see that it divides the day into single hours. Please don't succumb to that. That's for managers and for other silly people. As programmers, you should run on blocks of no less than, say, 4 hours or so. Just don't schedule anything in the middle of the afternoon because your whole afternoon will be gone. Another thing is that even as developers, we aren't superhuman. We do get sleepy at night. So we start using drugs. I think 90% of the population drinks caffeine. And caffeine is a psychoactive drug. I know we don't think of it as a drug, but it is. It affects your mind in terrible, terrible ways. It's not that bad. You'll just have a headache like I have right now. The thing with drugs is that they are very spiky. So if you consider your energy levels during the day, when you drink caffeine, it shoots up, and then when it falls back down, it goes slower than it was before, and you have to drink again, and so on. And the problem with this is that you have these dips in your energy, in your attention span, where you just become unfocused, you can't work. Usually after lunch, something like we had right now, especially if you eat something greasy, you'll get a bit sleepy. If you ate too much, you'll get sleepy, and that's not very good for productivity. What you want is to have the same level of energy all day. One way of doing that, a very bad one, is with caffeine. It helps a bit, it's very fun, and it does overclock your brain, and that's why I drink it. But you have to drink a cup every 3 hours or so, because the halftime is about 4 hours, and you have to drink the next cup when you're just going down from the peak. It takes half an hour to kick in, and the problem with this is that eventually you will come to a situation I got during an exam period a few years ago, where I had to drink 3 or 4 Red Bulls to be awake at noon. So you don't want that. Get sleep instead. And I have a bit of bad news. The best thing to have uniform energy levels throughout the day is to simply be healthy. I know we don't like being healthy as developers. We love pizza, we love energy drinks, we love everything that's bad for us. But really, if you eat every 3 or so hours, you will never have that dip of energy after a meal, because all your meals are small, so they don't weigh you down, and you will always have enough energy to get to the next meal. And in the morning, don't drink coffee in the morning to wake up. Have exercise instead, because no, seriously, caffeine.
I'll totally do that.
I actually do that. It does work. The thing with caffeine is it binds to something called adenosine, which is a neurotransmitter that tells your brain that so much time has passed since you were last asleep that you are now sleepy. And in the morning you have none of that, and everything that caffeine does is block adenosine receptors. So basically, if you drink coffee right after waking up, all it does is the placebo effect. It has no chemical influence on you whatsoever. If you exercise, you will pump a lot of oxygen in your brain, and that will wake you up. I had something else to say here, but I can't remember it right now.
Exercise.
Yes, do exercise. Fat. Don't eat too much fat. They did an experiment was done on rats. If you eat a very fatty meal, it will lower your IQ for about 20 points for the next half of a day. That's a lot. I mean, if you have an IQ of 120, you're well above average and a very smart person. And then you eat something very fat and you're at 100. And that's those people who sweep the streets. So you don't want that. You want to work on your mission critical code while you are as smart as somebody who can't pass high school. That's the wrong direction. No. Well, anyway, let me try going to the last slide again. That's it from me. I'm going to take some questions, and if you want to read the book, it's still going. I haven't finished it, but you can already download what I've got. Your promo code is webcamzg, and with that you can get it for free, and that's it. So, questions? What? No questions? Really?
So do you no longer work at night?
I do actually work at night, but I've noticed that I can code very well at night, but I can't write at night. So I write in the mornings and during the day, and then in the evening I start coding and doing that sort of stuff. I don't know why. That's just how it works.
It's probably habit.
It's what?
Habit.
Yeah, probably habit.
Okay, thank you, Swizec.